So let's jump in. This is me. This is what I look like. You can see me on video as well. I'm Dan Schleifer. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Cosaic. For those of you guys that know me, I started this business almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago in January. We started the business as ChartIQ. ChartIQ remains one of our two flagship products. Back in late 2016, we started investing in R&D for what eventually became Finsemble, which we released in the market in 2017. We've since renamed the firm as Cosaic to reflect the portfolio of applications that we have for capital markets. So excited to show you the new evolution here. As I mentioned in the introduction, most of you guys are probably familiar with the concept of a smart desktop. But I think it's worth taking a look at how we define it, because you can define it as kind of very baseline interoperability, or you can define it how we do of a very rich smart desktop experience for our users. So at the core of this is the problem that we're trying to solve. And that's frankly application overload. We've spent as an industry the past several decades and countless billions of dollars building applications to solve our users' problems. Every problem that they had, we built a new application to solve it. And over the decades, we've built those applications in a variety of different technologies, from C++, .NET, Java, and HTML5, with a little bit of Delphi and other things thrown in for fun. The result of this is that our users have more software they have to interact with than ever before. This was a recent study that was done of knowledge workers across industries. I think it's even more extreme in capital markets. The average knowledge worker is interacting with 90 different applications every month. They're copying and pasting over 100 times a day, and they're switching back and forth between applications 1,100 times a day. A stat that, frankly, I didn't believe when I first read the study, but I would guess 5 minutes into this webinar, you've probably already looked over at Symphony or Microsoft Teams or your email to see what's going on there and switch back and forth for context sharing. Now, that's all wildly inefficient. And obviously, we care about efficiency for our users. The bigger problem in my mind is that these users that have so many applications have a demonstrably higher error rate. They're making mistakes because of all this rekeying of information, the mental context switching that goes along with the application context switching. So that 28% increase in error rate is a real problem. And I would argue that in capital markets, it's even more severe than any other industry because our mistakes are very expensive mistakes. So we want to try to solve for this. And the goal of interoperability is to do three things, right? We want to improve efficiency. We want to improve the effectiveness of our users, right? So we don't want traders, portfolio managers, risk managers. We don't want them doing rote, routine tasks over and over. We want them thinking. We want them generating alpha. We want them doing a great job. At the same time, in order to speed up, we don't want that error rate to go up. And so at the same time with interoperability, not only do we want to make them faster and more effective, but we also want to reduce that error rate at the same time. So what is a smart desktop? Well, at that base layer is interoperability. And interoperability at its core just means these two applications can talk to each other and send messages. That is necessary, but it is by no means sufficient. And where, frankly, we see a lot of projects from 5 years ago kind of left off and didn't frankly evolve from basic, my applications can message each other to a smart desktop. So beyond that, we now want to build intelligent multi-step workflows between the different applications that represent the user journeys of our users as they navigate their day-to-day routines. We need sophisticated workspace management that allows our users to lay out all of their applications, both native and web applications, across all of their monitors, save those workspaces, share them with their colleagues, share them with a junior person on the desk, and then switch between workspaces for different types of tasks that they need to do, different applications they need to load up. And then finally, we need enterprise connectors. We need to connect everything that's living on this smart desktop back to the enterprise services, single sign-on for authentication, entitlements, data storage, workspace sharing, instant messaging and chat networks. We need to connect everything that's on the desktop to those kinds of feeds. And as a result, we end up with a smart desktop that is made up of our market data terminal, our order management system, our in-house applications that are built in .NET or Java, our third-party fintech applications that are currently being delivered via a web browser. And the smart desktop really only comes together in its power when all of these applications can work seamlessly for the user and build those intelligent workflows between them. Now, this brings us to what we're here to talk about today, which is the Smart Desktop Designer. This interoperability movement, the Smart Desktop movement, has been gaining steam. If you listen to Waters Technology, it's the most important trend in capital markets right now, but it's required a big investment from firms that want to put this into place. The real problem, as we see it, is that it takes too much developer time to get from where you are to where you want to be. And that has a bunch of problems associated with it. It's really expensive. Developers are harder and harder to find. And any sort of project inside an organization that's going to take 6 months or 12 months, it's going to cost a lot of money. Chances are it's going to go over budget, over time. It's not delivering value to your users quickly. And it carries project timeline risk, right? We all know that we can have reorganizations, layoffs, macro events, changes in priorities, things that get in the way of these longer projects. And this has been a problem. Again, we're a vendor who sells in this space, and I'm telling you, this is a problem that has existed with our product and with our competitors' products, is the time to value equation is too long. Now, our calling card in the industry has been being the most complete smart desktop platform, and that we've got the shortest time to value of our competitors, but it's still required that you have a development team that is up to the task. So the idea, and what we've literally spent the past 12 months investing in, along with all of our kind of normal R&D investments, is this no-code smart desktop designer, right? The idea is that you can have a smart desktop that doesn't require you to be dependent on having a development team available. You might have a development team, but that doesn't mean that they're available or that this is the top priority. Nimble businesses want immediate business value. I can go sign up for Salesforce.com for my sales team today. I, Dan Schleifer, can configure it, load in all my data, and get it to my salespeople tomorrow. Now, will it be the world's most customized and integrated Salesforce instance? No, but my time to value is very short, and I can continue to invest on in the future, and then bring in the developers, the consultants, to help me get more and more value as you go deeper into that integration and customization. And so that's really, the Smart Desktop has been all about, letting the users do their best work and getting out of the rote and routine tasks. And this last bullet point here is really about doing that same thing for developers. We're not eliminating developers from this journey. What we're saying is, don't build plumbing and infrastructure, build the high value, specific to you and your user workflows. If a developer can sit down at a desk and talk to the traders and map out, I do this and then this, and I rekey this over into Excel, and I move over to here and I calculate this, and I go back into the OMS and I do that, and they can automate that task, that's super high value. And that's the kind of thing that developers should be focused on, is using the Smart Desktop, using that automation framework to build these powerful workflows. So, this no-code, low-code trend has been out there for a while, and it's generally been around no-code, low-code application development. How do you build a business application without having to have developers, or minimizing the amount of developers? Our friends at Genesis are doing a fantastic job of this in capital markets. We're taking those same benefits of low-code application development and moving it over into application integration. So it's the same set of principles and comes with a lot of the same benefits, right? Reduced cost, lower maintenance, the business agility that we were talking about before. But from my standpoint, the biggest one is over here, is speed, right? If you can purchase my product and load all of your applications into it and deploy it to your users, and your users start to get value out of it next week, that speed is worth it, right? It's the time to market, time to value. And then once you have the framework in place, being able to iterate for additional value. So how do we build a smart desktop in under an hour? This is a difficult task. There's a lot of complex stuff going on the smart desktop, And unlike a SaaS provider, we can't just give you a cloud-based solution because you need everything to stay within your firewall. So all of the configuration and building of a smart desktop through the Smart Desktop Designer needs to happen locally. So you're configuring it there. All of that is staying within, isn't reliant on our infrastructure, isn't reliant on having a SaaS backend that's provided by us once you go into production. So we've got this point and click graphical user interface that runs locally, that allows you to add in your applications, integrate them, design the user experience, configure security. Somebody like you or me as a business user can assemble, customize, and deploy into production a smart desktop. FDC3 enabled applications work out of the box with no code additions. And for those, we'll talk about applications that don't support FDC3 now, but for those, it becomes quite easy then to take that development time that you have and focus on your application development team and allow them to go in and start retrofitting older applications to support FDC3. So we get some questions. We've been talking to early customers about this. The first one is always, is it really no code? And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to do a live demo in a moment. But to be very clear, the Smart Desktop Designer is 100% no code. You can add applications, you can theme it with your corporate colors and logos and all that kind of stuff. You can configure single sign-on and application level security. You can share workspaces, and you can deploy to production with absolutely no code. And FDC3 enabled applications will interoperate with each other with no code. This gives you full window and workspace management, all the stuff that I'm going to show you today with no code. So when do you need some code, right? When do we go from no code to low code? Well, some of your applications are not going to support FDC3. Those are either going to be in-house applications or third-party applications. In that case, your application developers, the people responsible for those apps, are going to have to add FDC3 support. And I'm going to show you an example during the live demo of adding FDC3 support to an application with low code. We've built and are open sourcing and will be formally announcing at the Open Source Strategy Forum from Finos, our new FDC3 workbench, which is a set of developer tools and tutorials and information to make this process even easier. So even where coding is required, our goal is to make that easy. And supporting FDC3 means that your application won't just work in Finsemble, it'll work in our competitors as well. And we think that's a good thing, right? The rising tide lifts all boats. If everybody speaks the Fix protocol, that's great. If only a few people speak Fix and everybody else has a proprietary interface, it doesn't work. And then developers can leverage the power of Finsemble's advanced APIs to extend and customize the desktop further once it's in production. So there's definitely a role for these developers, but again, it's getting them focused on the stuff that make the easy parts easy and the hard parts easier. So I've mentioned this term FDC3, and for applications to talk to each other, they have to support FDC3. So most of you guys probably know some of this, but I'm going to take you through it anyway real quick. So what is FDC3? At its core, it's a single standard API that is specific to our industry, that is designed for all applications to be able to work on all platforms. So that means me and my competitors, as well as in-house platforms as well. A few basic bits. So the FDC3 consortium is this open standard and set of standards for developers who build financial applications. It is run as a part of Finos, the FinTech Open Source Foundation, of which most of the firms of the people on this call today are members. It is an open source community where a bunch of open source coding projects exist. This is an industry standards body that lives within that same framework. It is open to everyone. We participate, one of our principal engineers, Chris West, co-chairs the FDC3 working group, but you know what? Our competitors participate, banks participate, buy sides participate. Just like Fix, it's really important that everyone come to the same table and agree on these open standards because it's good for the industry as a whole, and that rising tide lifts all boats. The other question that we get is often, what's the difference between the FDC3 standard versus an implementation? So the standard defines how things should work, but you still need an implementation, Finsemble or one of our competitors, or to build your own in order for it to work. So it's the difference between having the fixed standard and having a fixed adapter and an order management system, right? One is the standard, the other is the implementation. So how's this stuff being used in the wild? Great. There's this theoretical thing. It's a trend. It's taking off. How's it being used in the wild? So Charles River, the big buy-side order management system, is adding built-in FDC3 support. They happen to be a Finsemble client, so I'm biased on that front, but they're committed to this open interoperability. Bloomberg actually has an open set of APIs called Terminal Connect, and in fact has been fantastic. We're a Bloomberg certified integration partner and really being open from an integration standpoint, but they don't yet speak FDC3 natively. So inside Finsemble as an implementation, we've built a proprietary translation layer that goes between Bloomberg and the FDC3 standard. You've got your application. The majority of applications that we see that support FDC3 are applications being built by in-house development teams. And then I wanted to highlight something like FX Connect, because it's not just about applications that sit inside your firewall, but also venues and the applications that they provide, single dealer platforms, multi-party trading platforms, things like FX Connect. So once we have FDC3 support, what kinds of workflows can we build? So if I'm in Charles River and I have an order with currency exposure, I might decide I want to just right-click on that row in my blotter and launch or update charts in Bloomberg or other analytics about that currency. I might then pass that information off to an internal application that does my own risk calculations, my own hedging calculations, whatever that is, provides feedback to the trader based on your proprietary analytics. And I might want to stage or execute a transaction in something like FX Connect. And then upon that completion, go back and update the order in Charles River. So once all these applications can talk together and you've got a workflow engine like Finsemble, you can start stringing these together in the specific workflows that matter to your users. So let's take a look at this. No pressure, doing a live demo. I'm going to jump out of there and show my desktop. So hopefully you guys see a bright, cheery Finsemble background on my desktop. And you see this little floating toolbar guy. And for those of you that haven't seen Finsemble before, this is our launcher bar. This is kind of the heart of Finsemble from an end user perspective. It floats around. I can also, and most people do, dock it to the top of the screen where it'll kind of occupy space just like my Windows toolbar at the bottom. I've got my Finsemble one at the top. You can also actually move it to the bottom of your screen if you prefer. From here, as a user, when I log in, are all of my workspaces, my application, my federated search. I can pin things to my, my quick launch up here to get to my different applications. So that's what Finsemble kind of normally looks like. But what I'm here to do is to demo how to customize the Smart Desktop. So this is what it's going to look like out of the box when you get it, right? All that stuff is pre-built for you, but now you need to make it your own. So this is the Smart Desktop Designer that I've pulled up on screen. I'm going to go ahead and get started by giving this project a name, and our sample bank is called Wave Bank. And I've got a few simple steps that I need to go through. So I'm going to start by adding a few different applications. So I'm going to pull up my Windows File Explorer, and you'll see that I'm just going to take this Smart Desktop Designer over here. I'm going to go ahead and grab our little sample application. I'm just going to drag and drop it in here. You'll see it shows up FDC3 WPF example. I'm going to go in and edit it and just relabel it. I'm going to go ahead and set the default window size. I could change some other parameters, and I've got some security settings down here we'll show you in a moment, but I'm going to leave those for now. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into my Windows accessories, and I'm going to find Microsoft Paint. Let's open that file location, find the actual exe. I'm going to drag Microsoft Paint in here as well. Again, we'll go in and edit the name, and we'll change the default size. Okay, so I've now added two native applications, and you'll see that those native applications are now up here in my applications menu. And if I want to go ahead and launch one, I can just launch it. It's going to launch at the size, this window now, snap and docks, and all that kind of fun stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is add a couple of web-based applications. Pull up my little cheat sheet here of some URLs. So I'm going to go ahead and add my order management system, which in this case is a web-based OMS. So I'm going to click on add. I'm going to go through the little add application wizard. I'm going to pick a web application. I'm just going to put in the URL. This is my order management system on a secure server. Go ahead and change the name, call it OMS. And again, I'll pick my spawning size, 800 by 500. Hit save. And I can just go ahead and test it out, make sure that my order management system loads. And in fact, it does. Go ahead and add one more application. Go ahead and add a depth of market display as one of my trading tools. I'm going to add another web application, put in my depth of market. We'll call that DOM. Make it 500 by 500 and go ahead and hit save. So I'm going to hide this out of the way for a moment. Now that we've got some applications in here, let's take a look at using them. So first, I'm going to go ahead and pull up that order management system. So I pull up my order management system. This is an equities OMS. I can see my new orders, my working orders, my executions. You'll see that for each of these, I have some little buttons in here. Say, do I want to pull open a chart? Now that I've added this order management system, and this OMS is configured to speak FDC3, I can fire off an intent saying for Rio Tinto, I want to look at a chart. So I'm going to click on this and I get Finsemble's built-in intent resolver. It says, okay, you want to look at a Rio Tinto chart. Which application do you want to use? I'm going to go ahead and say I want to use ChartIQ for this. It's going to go ahead and open up ChartIQ and it's going to load it up to Rio Tinto. So now I've got my order management system and I've got my chart. I'm going to go ahead and dock them together. I can move them around, minimize them, etc. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the same color channel. And what this does, and these color channels can synchronize over to my Launchpad workgroups in Bloomberg. I can click on these, and as I click on my different orders, it's going to go ahead and update the particular security over there. Okay, so let's go ahead and for fun, let's add Microsoft Paint. So Microsoft Paint, you'll notice snaps and docks to my group as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my depth of market display. Got my depth of market. And I'm going to go ahead and add our WPF example. And this is just a .NET application that is using the Finsemble .NET library, which allows us to basically add FDC3 support as well as access to all of the Finsemble APIs into a native .NET component. Go ahead and link all of these together and dock them all together. And you'll see that I now have this kind of group of all of my applications. And as I click on any of them, I now have the IAG depth of market. I have IAG context shared via FDC3, and I've got a IAG over here. I'm going to hide this out of the way for just a moment. We're going to go back into the Smart Desktop Designer. So now that I have all these applications, we're building this workflow that's centered around my order management system. Well, the brilliant thing about FDC3 and interoperability is everything can talk to everything. But what if I want everything to talk to everything? Now that I have this kind of free-for-all on my desktop, how do I control for that? So one of the things that we've added in Finsemble that, to my knowledge, isn't out there anywhere in the industry is application-to-application security that is configurable on a granular basis. We call this Select Connect. And this allows me to come in and edit my order management system and say which applications are allowed to communicate with it. So I can actually control interoperability and say the order management system is only allowed to take commands from these particular applications, and I can save it. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you guys as we come back to our Smart Desktop is I've got all these different kinds of applications. I've got, a default kind of Microsoft Paint one, which we'll get rid of for now. I've got my in-house ones, but I wanted to show you guys a third-party one. So I've added in Yahoo Finance. Now, we all use Yahoo Finance. Everybody in the world does. They're also a ChartIQ customer, so I love these guys. Now, Yahoo Finance does not support FDC3, right? They're not in institutional capital markets. And despite the fact that they are a customer of ours, I don't have the ability to go in and just ask them to change their roadmap and add FDC3 support. So I can add it in here, I can add it to my group, I can save it in my workspace. But what if I want to link it together and I want to pass context to it? So that when I click on IAG or AZN, not only is my Chart IQ chart updating, but my Yahoo Finance screen is loading up with AstraZeneca as well. So this is a good example of a third-party application that I don't have source code control over, and how do we add FDC3 support to it? So let me jump in here 1 second. I'm going to bring my PowerPoint back up. So we talked about no code versus low code. This is where low code comes in. One of my developers wrote this for me. This is about 15 lines of code, and this gets injected by Finsemble into Yahoo Finance and adds FDC3 support. So this is literally the code, 15 lines of it. I don't understand it, but I've been told this is very simple. And it gets preloaded by Finsemble, which means that we didn't have to have access to Yahoo Finance's code base in order to make this change. So now when I come back to my Smart Desktop, I've got Yahoo Finance added in here, and it connects to everything else. Now, in your world, you may not want Yahoo Finance, but you may have applications that come from other teams inside your company that come from fintechs that don't support FDC3 yet. So it's really important to think about, how are you going to add that kind of support? And we want to make that quick and easy. Now, let's go back to our Smart Desktop Designer and kind of finish customizing our Smart Desktop. Now, this you'll notice is kind of dark theme. It's got the Finsemble icons. All my little task tray items down here are Finsemble icons. So let's go ahead and customize the theme. Now, I'm not a designer, so I had to ask our actual graphic designer, Gwendolyn, who is lovely, do the same thing you guys would do, which is go to your marketing department and say, what are our corporate colors? And we have a dark theme and we have a light theme that come out of the box. So yes, I want to change my theme. You'll see now all of my windows are, different colors. If I pull open, preferences dialog, it's all light theme now and looks very pretty. And I can go through and I can change the different colors. So for instance, Gwendolyn has told me that I need to make our primary background color this particular hex code. So I'm going to go down primary background. And now you can see that that automatically updated. Apparently that's our corporate blue. We also have images that we're going to want to upload. When Finsemble launches, there's a splash screen. So I'm going to go back to my file explorer. I'm going to go to the images that Gwendolyn gave me. I'm going to go through and I'm going to change my splash screen. I'm going to go in and say, I want my Wave Bank splash screen. I want my Wave Bank toolbar icon, my taskbar icon, my system tray icon, a lot of different icons, and finally my installer icon, which is what will show up on the desktop. And you can see that my little, down here in the lower right, if you can see this, my little Finsemble menu in my tool tray is now our corporate colors and has our corporate icon. Just brought everything to the front. You can see that each of my Finsemble windows down here has the little icon, and that everything up here has the icon as well. So now I've actually gone through and customized the look and feel of Finsemble as well. And that does cascade through. So if you noticed, all of my windows have a little thing up here. My notifications are all in that color theme. Everything is designed to match once you customize it. Now, the next thing I need to do is connect to authentication, right? Single sign-on. So what I'm going to do is we use Google internally. So we use the Google Office kind of suite, Gmail, Gcalendar, etc. So I'm going to pick my provider from the list. We've got Google and Salesforce. You can also use custom. This uses, I can't remember the name of it, but it's an open standard for single sign-on. I'm going to go ahead and pick Google. I'm going to go ahead and put in my little client ID key. I'm going to click test and save. And this is literally me logging into my dan@cosaic.io. It's not going to, there we go. Let me put in my password. And now I've added single sign-on to Google. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just in the interest of truth in advertising, I'm going to go back to applications. I'm going to go ahead and add a Google application so you can see that I have in fact now single signed on in. So I'm going to add my Google Calendar. Go ahead and do this. Save that. We'll go ahead and launch it, and it should automatically sign me into my actual Google Calendar, which I won't let you guys see the details of. So single sign-on is as easy as that. Now, the next step, once I go through and set everything up the way that I want it, is to basically be able to publish this to my users. So I have two options here. One is I can publish this project, which is actually going to build an installer. I need a project name. And this is basically going to create an executable installer that I can hand out to my users, or I can export this to a zip file for my developers, what's called a seed project. This will allow your developers to upload it into GitHub or whatever you use and start coding away at it and using our advanced APIs. So I can go directly into production, or I can hand this off to my developers to go even further. I'm going to go ahead and click publish. What that's going to do is zip everything up and create an installer. It takes a few minutes. So we'll come back in just a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this workspace that we've been building. Now, this is all well and good. I've got this workspace. Let's say that I really like this workspace. I can go ahead, because Workspace Management comes out of the box, even for these applications that we just added in, I can go ahead and save this workspace. I can just call this my webinar workspace, and I'll go ahead and confirm that. I'm going to switch back over to just a blank workspace. So now I've just got my Smart Desktop Designer. If I want to switch back to the one that we just built together as a team, go ahead and switch back over. And it's going to relaunch all of my applications exactly where they were across all of my monitors. And it's going to remember that they were all docked together. They were all on their channels. They were all set onto specific securities, whatever the case may be. So everything gets remembered across these workspaces. These workspaces can be shared by users. I can actually export this and send a little workspace file over to one of my colleagues who can then open it up. You can also add through an enterprise connector the ability to automatically save these workspaces back to your database. But for now, I've built the workspaces that I want. I can share them by attaching to a Symphony message or an email, and I've got everything that I need here. So once I have my workspace, I've saved my workspace, how do I start thinking about building workflow? Well, at the core of what most people are going to do is in their order management system. What you may have noticed up in the upper right is I'm occasionally getting notifications that come in. These notifications are telling me that there is a new order in my order management system. Now from here, I've got customizable buttons. I could say I want to open a chart. I could say I want to accept the order, but I wasn't quite fast enough. I didn't click the accept icon. So I'm going to open up Finsemble's notification center, and I can see all of my different notifications that have come in. I'm going to say I only want to look for anything that was about AZN. Okay, so now I've filtered my notifications. I can click accept, and you'll see that now my AZN order is over here. I want to accept this PRU order, now it's over here. And I can see these different notifications that have come out. I can also kind of, streamline this down to just a small view. I can snooze these, I can mark them as red. I can change all my different notification settings for different sorts of sources and what kinds of notifications that I want. So all of this is configurable. I can even pop it out and move it over to a different monitor if I want, or pop it right back in so I have access to it over here. So as I'm going through, I can basically start taking in orders. I can click on the order that I'm working. I can see all of my different screens update with that information as I go from activity to activity. So in this, 15, 20 minutes that I've been talking, we've gone from a vanilla Finsemble install that I just double clicked on the icon, installed Finsemble on my desktop. We've added our applications. We've added native applications and web applications. We're able to snap, dock, and build workspaces out of a mix of in-house and third-party, native and HTML5. We're able to set up the security settings of the applications, our authentication and authorization. We completely themed the UI, and we now have working workflows built around the FDC3 standard, all without me writing a single line of code. The only exception was Yahoo Finance, where I showed you guys the 15 lines of code that we had to add to that application in order for it to be able to support context sharing. In fact, we didn't have to add any lines of code for it to be able to snap and dock and participate in workspaces. That's only for it to be able to receive FDC3 messages. Now, if I come back into my Smart Desktop Designer, you'll notice that we've published that project. So I can grab this URL, right? I told you that it was going to start building in the background an installer that we could hand to our users. I'll go ahead and pull my Chrome tab over here. And you'll see that we actually, oh, it's still being built. So it does take a few minutes. But this URL that the Smart Desktop Designer gives me allows me to actually send this file, this URL, over to my other users, and for them to then download this desktop that we've built, install it, launch it, and start using it today. So that's the whole idea, is start from a double-click icon. Somebody like me that can't write code can assemble this desktop out of applications. I can actually customize it, theme it, and build a production implementation for my users. And then, as phase 2, 3, and 4 of my Smart Desktop journey, I can get my developers focused on some of those higher value workflows and deeper customization that we want. What I just showed you on screen that took me just a few minutes is something that, in the history of interop has taken firms anywhere from months to, we've seen clients that have been struggling for years using an interop platform and haven't gotten this far. So I'm super excited about it, and I'm happy to take questions that you guys have from the demo. I'm going to switch briefly back to the PowerPoint. Oh, apologies. I have one last thing to talk about, which is our current clients. So everything that I showed you guys was about starting from scratch and getting to a production desktop. Obviously, our existing clients are already in production. They had to have developers working on it, right? The high code version of Finsemble. We're sending out a letter that's coming from me. You should get it soon if you're an existing customer. There's much more detail. And I would like to talk with you, as would our chief product officer, to talk through this. But I wanted to highlight how some of what we've been doing in the background here really benefits our existing clients. The abstraction that we've had to put in place between the code and the configuration to allow this to happen is adding more and more simplicity to the product. Still getting my OMS notifications up here on the right. It also allows for easier upgrades, and upgrading a smart desktop has not been a trivial task in the past, and it's something that we're committed to making easier and easier, and the work that we've put in here to allow for this allows for those quicker upgrades, because again, your code and your configuration stays separate from the core of Finsemble. The APIs that we do have become much more narrowly focused on those advanced integrations, which means that instead of having a huge API surface area for Finsemble, it's focused on those value-added things for developers, which means that those APIs are well documented, they're tested, they're stable. I've hammered on this 1,000 times, so I'll skip it, but developers focusing. And then, this is just the first version. I showed you a lot of capabilities today, but it's only the beginning of the journey that we're on and only the beginning of what we already have in the works. This is just the first part that is production ready and being released. So there is a lot of GUI admin capability that will be relevant not just to new customers, but to existing customers as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if we have some questions, we've got probably about 5 minutes to answer some questions from the audience, if anybody has one. It does require me to find the Q&A panel, though. No idea where the questions come out. I did a moment ago. This is when I'm pretty terrible at using WebEx. I like to think that it's not the most intuitive product on the market. Q&A and chat. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a few questions in here. WebEx is old. You are correct. Unfortunately, for some of our banking clients, they, to this day, do not allow some of the newer chat platforms. So we got a question, does Finsemble have experience working with Aladdin? So that's a great question. And in fact, a huge amount of the demand that we've seen for Finsemble over the past 12 months has been from the buy side. Aladdin is coming up more and more. We haven't done a full integration with them. We are starting to talk with them. If you're an Aladdin customer, it's our understanding that the guys at BlackRock are looking to collaborate. So we'd love to chat about that. We've mostly been, well, I won't name names, but a number of their kind of competitors are folks that we've been working with, but it's been demand driven. When we have a big asset manager or a big hedge fund that says this is the OMS that we use, it's on us to go off and work with that vendor. And it's been our experience that from the Bloombergs of the world on down, people are really open to collaborating when they see what this can deliver for their user. Let's see, there's a question about alert timeliness. Have you done any analysis in regards to any latency with alerts? In other words, are alerts 100% synchronized with the local apps? If I get a new buy alert via Bloomberg, will it show up at the same time in your application? Yes, so the alerts panel that we have there is designed to be able to consolidate alerts from multiple systems because, feedback that we got from traders was that they've got 7 different things dinging and flashing at them. And so the idea is that you can funnel everything over there. You can funnel things that are server-side alerts or things that are a client-side alert coming from a UI component. And that alerting system is stateful. So if a notification gets actioned in the back end, it will actually update in our front-end component as well. I don't know that we could tell you, like, is it 10 milliseconds or 20 milliseconds. Obviously, it's not for high frequency trading in the sub-millisecond, but certainly we can follow up on that. There is a question about the recording. Absolutely, we will be sending out the recording to everybody that joined today. Normally, we also post these to our YouTube channel if anybody wants to go and tune in via YouTube. See, we've got a few more questions. I'm going to try to quickly get through. Is the Cosaic desktop app code MIT licensed? It is not open source. We're a commercial software vendor. We do charge for use of the product. We do provide our clients with full transparency and access to the source code. Obviously, we encourage them not to directly modify the Finsemble code for the sake of upgradability in the future, but it is not free as in beer. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of developers to pay. Let's see. Well, we have to pay for the workbench if you want your help getting it FTC3 enabled. It's a great question. Unlike the desktop platform, the FTC3 workbench that we are going to be releasing is completely open source. We're donating it to Finos, so it will become part of Finos. It's open source. We're providing documentation and tutorials, and it will work not just in Finsemble, but in other platforms as well. For testing .NET and Java applications, it will require Finsemble because the desktop, each platform has their own native libraries. But for web applications, it'll work. You can run it in one of our competitors' platform. So question of what trading instruments can be traded, digital assets, FX, futures, ETFs, etc. Completely depends. You're the one putting your applications in there. So whatever applications that you have that are relevant to your users, we've got clients where we're serving multiple desks that do completely different asset classes. And there's, Finsemble in the equities group, in the fixed income group, in the currencies and commodities groups. Cross asset class there. And then let's see, we've got one more question. It looks like any high value workflow examples from clients. Yeah, I think, we actually had somebody, a client of ours, who showed it off during a webinar. So I'm happy to speak publicly around that one because there's a video of it, which is Pictet Asset Management. So they implemented Finsemble specifically in fixed income, although I believe it is spreading out from there. They were able to take a task that was taking their traders 10 to 15 minutes each time and automate it down to a single click using Finsemble, which was pricing out or calculating the implied yield of a money market trade based on future cash flows in other currencies. And so it had previously required manual work between Charles River, Bloomberg, Excel, and a proprietary tool. And they were able to string together all of those applications inside Finsemble and automate it down to a single click. It looks like we got the Aladdin question one more time, so I'll answer it again in case you missed this. We've not worked with them yet. We've talked with them. We would love to have a mutual client, which is generally how we handle integrations like Charles River or Bloomberg or other notable vendors. Is we end up with one client where it's really important to them. We work with that client and we make the integration code available to all of them. But we do like to have a client who is kind of the development partner there to guide us on the workflows that are relevant, both to guide us and to guide the vendor. With that, I want to thank you guys all so much for your time. If you have questions, feel free to contact us through the website. My email address is simply dan@cosaic.io. You can always email me personally. And of course, we'd be thrilled to come in and show you how what I showed you on screen today can be applied to the applications that your users have in production today. So with that, thank you guys so much for the time. We'll send out the recording. I look forward to talking with you guys soon. Cheers.